21. Scissors. Potassium iodide. See, now that I can use. Did it crash? No. I had a window pop up. This is an awkward situation. Oh, that's actually a bad idea, though. Ooh, what are you? But yeah, I think it's unfair to assume that the WWE is incapable of writing a decent storyline from what they have. The WWE has shown that there are things that they can do which will lead to positive outcomes. I am still irradiated. Let me ask the internet how it works. Will Prussian blue or sodium iodide remove I will ask the people who know what they're doing, because I certainly don't. Signal receiver. So apparently it's just a waiting game with the irradiated. Read. bottom one here. Drop. Want to get. I might be able to hold this out in there. I can just wield it. Oh, no I can't. Never mind. I forgot to put down a thing. It's a big canteen. Take up almost no space. So it's not those. I'm not going to need the locksmith kit down here. That's it. Go up the stairs. 7 stairs. Let's see. What else is there, though, to consider with the WWE right now? So, I guess the biggest part in the happy medium that they need to meet is the WWE needs to ignore the fans when it's stupid, but listen to the fans when it comes to appreciating and respecting a talented performer. Because that's the biggest problem, and I think the thing that the fans get the angriest about is the idea that a talented person, such as Becky Lynch for the last 2.5 years, who was the person they trusted enough to make the first women's champion of the new era of the WWE, and then they did nothing with her. Like, she relatively soon after lost the title, and then that was it. That was all that ever happened with it. And then for 2 years she did nothing. And that's on the WWE. That is absolutely on the WWE. I don't need this. I do need the toolbox. I don't need the hammer. I have one in the toolbox. The wood axe isn't going to be useful in there. And 31. Small packages of stuff. No. Here? Yes. So, but the biggest thing is that they will have a respected, wonderful, great talent. Someone like a good example is Zack Ryder. Zack Ryder, you should look up the stories for Zack Ryder. It's a frustrating experience. He was a charming and charismatic talent who built up respect not on the WWE's terms. He ran a web series and got popular, and the fans liked him. That's a problem in the WWE. If you get successful on your own terms as opposed to the WWE's terms, which I think is a crappy stupid thing, a stupid concept that if someone shows that they have the charm and charisma and personality and capability and they win over fans despite not having a push, then I feel like it's a waste not to indulge that talent and not to do something with it. But instead, what they did was they gave him the US title and then did nothing with him and then put him in a bunch of storylines specifically to hurt his credibility with the fans. And it worked to some extent because then people just didn't care about Zack Ryder. I came in I started watching again in the wake of the WrestleMania where Zack Ryder won the Intercontinental title for one day and then lost it to The Miz. And Zack Ryder deserved a lot more than that. Even having just come into the company again, I had learned enough to know that he was put in this situation where he had lost favor with the WWE, mostly out of succeeding despite them, not in spite of them. He still was very much a WWE guy as far as I could understand. He was, on the company's side. And he took the trash that was dealt to him as well. He dealt with it. He lived the storylines down and took the hits to his reputation that came with it, despite the fact that he had every right to tell him to go shove it and just no show and leave the events. It's not like people haven't survived that in the past and gone on to better things elsewhere. And so I think it's really unfair that they treated him that way because he was a great guy. And that's an example of the WWE doing something that they have no right to do that. In and of itself. Like, it's not fair because all it does is hurt their credibility, it hurts the fan support for the product, and it does nothing for anyone. It literally just hurts everyone in the situation. It hurt Zack Ryder, it hurt Zack Ryder's capabilities to show that he was a respectable talent and deserved the respect that was being afforded him by the fans. I really need to leave all of the um, body mods in the basement, now that I think about it, because that basement is where the thing is that can actually install them. But yeah, so, and that's not the only time that's happened, that's just the one that comes to mind. Um, that dragonfly scared me. the I'm trying to think of another one who's a really good example of that, but I can't off the top of my head. I do know there are more examples of it. Oh, another good one is how little trust they had in Dean Ambrose of the three members of the Shield. Um, Dean can play a heel and Dean can play a face, but the way that they made him play a face was often really dumb. I still think he did a good enough job, despite and possibly even in spite of really, really stupid storyline writing. Um, because a lot of people really hated the hot dog cart scene with the WWE and Dean Ambrose. But I don't know that that's fair, because I actually thought that, granted how kooky of an idea it was to come down to the arena with a hot dog cart and spray mustard at someone and everything that they did, it really was not that bad, and I think he did a pretty good job at selling that he just didn't care. And Dean was the face in the story where he did that. Oh, I don't want to take the food yet either. I do want the food here as backup. Um, it's gonna be down to little tiny things. Definitely not a jerry can. I want to leave those down here too, just in case. No. That's too much, actually. So, but what I was saying is Dean was a face there, and Dean was a face in the situation in which he went up against AJ Styles in a thing where James Ellsworth was shoehorned in the situation. And, okay, here's the thing. James Ellsworth, I don't know all the context on him. He might actually be not the greatest guy. He apparently did a no-show at a WWE event or something. I don't know. But, and I could be 100% wrong on that. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, Ellsworth. But the thing I was going to say is, Ellsworth seems like a pretty fun guy. He's weird looking, which, so what? I'm weird looking. I'm not as notably weird looking. I think my weird is understated. It's stuff that mostly only I see, apparently. Most people say I look pretty normal, which I think I look both somewhat weird and also generic, which is, I guess, a contradiction of sorts. But, he seemed like a fun guy, and he would take a bump like nobody's business. He was possibly a little bit on the reckless side there. I don't know if that's fair assumption or not. But he got put into a weird situation where he was charming enough that he became popular in a storyline with Braun Strowman, where Braun Strowman is this big, super beefy, strong badass who is every bit as intimidating as a puppy dog, except for the fact that he actually is a colossal bodybuilder and really is physically strong and capable, and possibly very intimidating if you were to make him feel threatened or like you were threatening his family or something like that. He might obliterate you. That said, though, he's a goofball. He's very silly, and I appreciate that about him. I really do. But anyway, digression. I'll get into Braun Strowman here in a minute. So, Dean Ambrose, in both of those stories, they had him in a high profile situation. He won the WWE Championship in one of the biggest, like, one of the largest pops I'd heard, where he came out and he cashed in the same day on Seth Rollins, who had beaten Roman Reigns, I think it was, or was it the other way around? Was Roman Reigns the one who beat Seth Rollins? I forget that part. All three members of the Shield, because all three of them were in a faction called the Shield. You can look up a lot about it. They were really good. They did a lot of fun stuff. Anyway, Dean Ambrose won, and then they proceeded to make the belt not have much value, and nobody cared, and whatever, except that it was in the storyline where, for a glimpse of a second, a very, very tiny amount of time, people were afraid that this doofy-looking guy, who his whole shtick was just that he was a weird-looking, clumsy guy who kept getting put in storylines that were way above his hypothetical pay grade, he got put into this picture, this scene of part of the WWE where this must be a dog park, which is depressing. Yeah, it's a dog park. So, very funny. The storyline, though, proceeded to devalue Dean Ambrose, AJ Styles, the WWE title itself. It was just all around very bad for business. Kind of quoting Stephanie on her best for business thing and inverting it. It was not good for business. It was a pretty stupid storyline, and it hurt everyone involved, except, I guess, James Ellsworth did get his 15 minutes of fame, as it were. Which, good for him. I mean, honestly, good for him if he managed to make being a dork work. I'm good on him. He did it in a business where nothing is really guaranteed. The higher ups will just turn on you in a heartbeat. And so, awesome for him. But that storyline really was very bad for the WWE, like, in general. It made everything look really dumb, which isn't what you want in a thing like the WWE. But they did what they could with it, and it didn't work. But the problem was, after it didn't work, they doubled down. And that's the biggest flaw of the WWE, really, is when they find out something doesn't work and they double down, insisting that you will like it, instead of moving on and trying something else when it turns out that what you're doing isn't working. They doubled down on that. They doubled down on pushing Roman Reigns before he was ready. They doubled down on... what are some other good examples? Brock Lesnar. They've doubled down on Brock Lesnar in the company, despite the fact that not only has he overstayed his welcome, but he has basically turned the Universal Championship, which in and of itself there are jokes to be made about what does that even mean, even though the context is that it is the counterpart to the World Championship on the other brand, because the name of the fandom is hypothetically within their minds called the WWE Universe. So the Universal Championship is the championship of the WWE fandom, as it were, which I guess has an extra tinge of irony to it, in that the person who is the figurehead of the Universal title almost during the entirety of its existence is a guy who has outright spoken out that he doesn't watch Raw when he's not on it. He doesn't really care outside of his performance in the WWE. He doesn't... I mean, when he's not on the show, it doesn't matter to him. And why is that the person who you want holding the title more or less indefinitely? I think I have a BB gun here, don't I? Yes, I do. So I will disassemble this one. There's something to be said about that, and it's not something positive. But the thing that I will say is, at least Brock Lesnar, for his faults, which I am the main speaker against him on it, apparently, the man can at least still act like he gives a damn in the ring. He still will sell for people. If you really want to look at a great example of Brock in his kind of performance high, I would say, his bout versus Finn Balor recently was better than it had any right to be. It was very well performed, and he did a great job of selling this person who is much smaller than him as being a legitimate talent. But that said, for the most part, Brock doesn't care. He's there to hold the title, and when he's done with the title, he'll probably quit the company again and go to AEW, which is Vince McMahon's biggest fears, the Brock Lesnar's in AEW. And, but honestly, they've made the value of the title that's on him zero. I don't care at all about the Universal Championship. The only thing I look forward to is if they finally pull the trigger and let Seth Rollins hold the title instead, which he's the one who's going for it at Mania. If they let him hold the title, at least it will be on TV. That is the biggest thing, is that the title of one of your brands has been around for 2 years and on the show for maybe 4 months in total. And that's embarrassing. It really, really is, that they haven't come up with anything else to do at all for that storyline. And so, I hope that if Seth wins, that we can move on from the failed experiment that was Brock Lesnar being the only person to hold this championship ever. And we'll move on to something else. With someone else. Someone else who I care about more. Brock, again, is a great talent and a physical impossibility. But I don't care about him being on WWE TV at all. I don't. I give zero care at all about him in the WWE. He can move on, do other things. I will probably care more about the show after he's not on it, despite the fact that he could go to AEW. Honestly, if he goes to AEW, it will be, in my opinion, a mark against the AEW. Just because of how obnoxious he is to put into a company. He doesn't bring anything to the table if he's not on the show, and his whole thing is that he'll say that he doesn't care, that he doesn't watch the show he's on when he's not on it. He doesn't, the level of apathy is unprofessional, and I don't like that. And I don't know why people continue to support him acting that way in the company. I would be mortified if I had someone who acted that way, who worked for me. But they continue to give him chance after chance. And I don't know why. Because, yes, he's good, but you can have someone who does a good job but doesn't deserve to work for you. I mean, a person can be talented in one respect and terrible in another. Say, like you could have a person who is the most reliable person when it comes to counting money, and they can do a great job, but you don't want to have them as a cashier because they have zero people skills, for example. And that's how it is with Brock. He is an impressive physical specimen who can do all of the things that are necessary of being on a wrestling show, and he still shouldn't be a wrestler because he doesn't even care enough to support the thing that he's in. His first run was probably the only one that should be looked on with as much fondness as it is. And when he was at his prime, and when he was doing a good job, and he still was invested enough in the company that he wasn't worried about doing other things, be it UFC or going to Japan or AEW, if they sign him, or professional boxing or amateur wrestling or any other thing that he is completely qualified to also do besides just being in the WWE, then fine, let him go do that. Because I'm not watching those. I'm watching the WWE, but I'm not watching the WWE for Brock Lesnar, despite what anyone says. And it may just be me, because apparently when he's on the show, buy rates go up and views go up, or at least they used to. I don't know if that's still the case. But it did positively affect the company. And so I'm sure that it was a case of operant conditioning where it worked in the past and they're trying to repeat old successes. And so, yeah, I mean, but it's not working. It's not helping anyone. And so, I don't know who they're doing that for. I mean, I do. They're doing it for Vincent Kennedy McMahon and his suspicious boner for very muscular men. He will give you a push just because you're muscular, even if you can't do other things really well. And so that's also probably why Brock's still in the company, because he is a very big, very tall, very muscular guy who has a lot of the aspects that are good for wrestling. But in the end, the negative aspects, which are also tied to him, hurt the image that is being expressed by the company by having this big, lumbering, muscular guy who doesn't care about your product, but you're putting all these accolades on him. Why? Why bother? Why even give him the time of day? If he doesn't care, why should I care about that same thing? Don't give him the titles. If he doesn't care, why does he deserve a title? And so, let him go do other things. I will still watch. In fact, I'll be more inclined to care about the product, as I was saying. Braun Strowman, which this was the other thing I was going to talk about, and it'll probably be the last thing I say before I end up going offline. Braun Strowman was he's still in the company. He's still an awesome guy. He's a dork, but he's very intimidating. He's a strong man. He can deadlift ridiculous amounts, and they portray him as this intimidating monster when they have him on the show. He flipped an ambulance, which is absolutely impossible. It weighs 14,000 pounds. There's no way a human could lift it. And, but they sold on the show that he flipped an ambulance when he was really mad. And it was one of those things that was so ridiculous that it was amazing. And they sold it serious, and despite the fact that everybody knew what was happening was impossible, it still worked because it was fun. Because that's what it's supposed to be. Wrestling is supposed to be fun. If it's not fun, why am I watching it? I don't... And that's true of a lot of things. There are a few exceptions where things can be inherently not fun, especially in the context of I don't know, a documentary or a horror movie where you're not necessarily having fun. I mean, I guess in a horror movie some people might still have fun in spite of what it is. But, in a lot of cases, if I'm experiencing something that is a leisure activity, In the case I'm speaking of here, it is watching wrestling. If I'm not enjoying what I'm doing, why am I still doing it? And I will move on. And I will. I will stop engaging in the activity that is not enjoyable to me. And it's why, if you look, the view rates for the WWE have gone through the floor. I mean, they've been terribly lower. And then they made this claim that they were going to start listening to the fans, and it went up for a little while. And then they stopped listening to the fans, and it's gone back down. And there's a chance that this WrestleMania will be the least viewed WrestleMania of all time, despite the fact that they have some of the best talent they've ever had. Because they're doing things like they've done with Asuka, or Shinsuke Nakamura, or Rusev, or Nikki Cross, or Sanity, or Bray Wyatt, or who else has had it bad? Zack Ryder, who is still in the company, or Mojo Rawley, who I think is better than most people think of him as, or who else is there? Ruby Riott, or who else? Because there's a lot of them. There are a large number of them. Let me put down the beer and the vodka that I don't need in my inventory because I don't want to. No, I'm not doing that again. I've already demonstrated what happens when you're dumb. I don't need this here. I'll put these down. Everything else. Okay, good. But they're really... who are some others? There's gotta be others. I mean, there are. Apollo Crews is another good one. Who has demonstrated that he really is a talent in other venues, but in the WWE they just have not used him very well at all. Tyson Kidd before he got hurt. Ty Dillinger while he's been in the company. Since he got to the main roster, that is. Finn Balor in many ways, especially after he got hurt. I don't know. There are so many examples of it. But so what happened here with Braun Strowman? They had this huge push, and he was super popular, and people really liked him, and they were liking him for the things that they was doing in the WWE, which to me means he should have been getting exactly what he deserved, which at the time was a push to the main roster, or the main thing, and the main titles, and they did an interesting thing that I think actually deserves a lot of merit for being interesting and clever and fun. I'm taking that. You know what? I'm going to... Oh, but it encumbers your hand. Well, I don't need the other briefcases if they won't do anything. Oh, it's a step ladder. Alright, so, but yeah, so he should have gone to the top. I mean, he really, really deserved to go to the top. He was doing exactly what they asked of him. He was doing a great job in that role. He was demonstrating that he deserved respect in his role because he was performing very, very well. And they let it set, and they let it set, and they were doing this thing where they were trying to push Brock Lesnar and say that Brock Lesnar was the be-all, end-all, and the savior of wrestling, and had to be the only person who could ever hold the title that he held, until they were going to finally give it to Roman Reigns. And the fans had already, as I said, soured on Roman Reigns. And they were voicing their opinions on that. Oh, I can't while I'm carrying the briefcase. And they put themselves in a situation that ruined like 4 stories at once, because there were four aspects of their product at the same time. They had Brock Lesnar staying in the company, holding the title so that he couldn't go do other stuff, I guess, I don't know. Holding a title he didn't care about, demonstrating that he didn't want to be on the show by not being on the show a lot, only showing up for pay-per-views, putting on pretty good matches, and then disappearing and making ungodly amounts of money while doing so. And, you know, good for him. I mean, if I could get that gig, I would. I am not so physically capable. I am not so ambitious. Whatever. But the problem was, by doing that, Braun Strowman was never able to win the title. They never ever put him in a feud specifically solely with Brock Lesnar. There was always someone else in the way. There was always someone else who was doing the same role. Where's... This is the one I want to put this in. Where's the jerry can? So they never had that blow-off event, which apparently Brock is better at fighting like small people in like a David and Goliath type thing. So maybe that was for the best in a way. I don't know. But the problem was that because they never had that blow off, despite several times hinting that it was going to happen, they made it one of those things where people were like, fine, it's not going to happen, I don't care anymore. And they stopped tuning into that idea and moved on. And so one of the things that came from that was people were like, finally, can you just put the title on Roman so we can move on with our day to the next thing? People were going to actually cheer Roman, who they'd been booing for a long time, simply because it meant Brock Lesnar wasn't going to hold the title, which is saying something. Because at the time, Roman had soured fans a lot until it unfortunately came to the fact that he got leukemia again, which is awful, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody, so it really, really sucked. And it happened like right after he won the title, which was also really, really mortifying. But so they went through all this effort to put the title on the guy who ended up with leukemia and having to drop it, which sucked. And I don't But I'll put anything on that. But they ignored numerous opportunities to put the title on someone else in the interim, someone who was in the company at the time, someone who showed capability, someone who had charisma, someone who was doing a good job at the exact role he was given, and they just didn't ever let it happen, despite the fact that it absolutely should have. And so people got bored and moved on, and in the process, it hurt Roman's push because they dragged this out through WrestleMania. He lost at WrestleMania, moved on. Well, no. He had a bout with The Undertaker at WrestleMania, and he won the bout versus The Undertaker. And then they spent a whole year with this. I'm gonna, get the Universal title back, and I'm gonna win it from Brock Lesnar and whatever. And then there was a feud with John Cena, and he was in a couple of fights where he was against Brock Lesnar for the title, and he never won it. And they milked it, and then finally people were like, whatever, I don't care. And so then people realized that it was basically the honorary Brock Lesnar belt of being Brock Lesnar and also being a wrestler. And people got so apathetic that basically the belt is meaningless now. It's been in the company for 3 years and it has almost no value, and no one cares to talk about it. And that's totally on the WWE on that one. That is undeniably part of the WWE doing that. And that is the writers, and there is no way anyone else has any blame besides the writers on that. They blew it so bad. There was plenty of opportunity for them to put it on someone else in the interim, someone who is in the company, who could have defended it long term and let the value of the belt build up by having people who were there and present on the show defending the title. And they wouldn't do it. They instead kept it on Brock Lesnar, and they didn't need to. All it did was hurt the value of the title. Since Roman didn't win it for a long time, it killed even the fans' interpretive push to the point where they thought maybe he had done something to anger the WWE or something, and they thought, well, maybe he's just never going to win it. And they didn't ever think that. They thought, well, maybe this is the show where he's going to win it. If not, then this is a stupid waste of our time. I think that there was one bout where they actually said beat the traffic to they chanted beat the traffic in the audience, which one, that is stupid and inappropriate. Terrible way to treat these people who are performing for you. Even if you're spending money, that doesn't mean that you have the right to be an asshole. So they wasted every opportunity they had to get the title to someone who could handle it better within the company and move storylines forward at a decent pace instead of 2 pay-per-views. Well, I guess maybe 1 pay-per-view a quarter. It would be bad to say 2 a year, because I think he was there more often than that. But by not giving the title any airtime, most people don't even think about the Jelly Donut title anymore. It's just off the air far more than it's on the air. And the only people, I mean, there were times where other people held it. Finn Balor was the very first person to hold it, and that's awesome. And it really sucked that he ended up getting a really bad shoulder injury and had to be out for several months and had to relinquish the title as a result. But here's the thing that's really, really dumb about that. They had Finn Balor relinquish the title because he couldn't be on the show to defend the title. Well, the problem with that is, um, Brock Lesnar is not on the show to defend the title ever. He's not on Raw. He hasn't defended. I don't even think he's had a match on Raw in 10 years. Um, if I remember correctly, I think that I've heard that before. I think that's what I heard online from sources bonjour. And I don't need coffee powder there, and I don't need the sun. But so they killed the push by doing that. Sorry, I was reading again. They killed the push of Braun Strowman in the process. They made Roman Reigns look very incapable during this entire thing. They have had the title off the air so much that people probably don't even think about it as a title, more so as a prop that Brock wears out to the ring. I mean, like, he's held it for like 2 years, and there's no reason for him to have held it for 2 years because nobody cares about the belt. Um, okay, so the irradiated is not working in my favor. I mean, it wouldn't work in your favor, but that's really annoying that that happened. But yeah, so they hurt the but the biggest problem is that also means you have the two biggest contenders for your main belt, the two maybe physically in a sense biggest stars, as well as the person who is supposed to be the next chosen one of the industry, the title, the main title of your flagship show, and the basically because of that, the by extension, the entire like reason to watch your show, and they've destroyed the image of all of it. And so that's pretty dumb of them. I bet that's why. I bet it's because that mini nuke's so close. I'll have to move the mini nuke next time I go back to the town. So let's see here. dried seeds, pipe, denatured alcohol, chemistry sets, hacksaws, heavy duty batteries, laptop computers, lump of steel. And drop this. Wasn't there one other thing that I needed to drop? So I derailed my conversation again. The biggest issue, though, is that they did all this and they basically killed the idea of that title having any value for a long time. And so that is only one of the reasons that SmackDown is succeeding over Raw. There are a lot of different aspects that really have caused this, but honestly, it's probably okay. So let me go over here, drop these. What did I grab that was so bulky? It must have been the denatured alcohol. Bottles of denatured alcohol. Where'd they go? Oh, it's because there was already one in there. Oh, yeah. Oh, wait. Let's use the Geiger counter here. Well, let's wait a day or two, and then we'll use the Geiger counter. But yeah, so when they did the the time I came back, I'd been watching a lot of videos about the WWE, and I had come to the conclusion that maybe I should start watching again because I was enjoying the videos and the kind of lore that had developed, and had a good time watching them. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll give it a shot. So I started watching it again. At the time, Shane wasn't in the company. He had not been in the company for a long time. And the thing that I was thinking was like, well, from what I understand, people in the locker room really liked Shane. They thought he was a pretty cool guy. And he was one of the only ones who would spend time with the actual performers instead of sitting on high and telling them what they need to do and what they need not to do. What else do I still have? The chemistry sets and access. They're gonna have to go back. But lo and behold, it wasn't too long after that that Shane. Okay, I'm gonna try something here. Alright, so that does not affect irradiated. That's what I was afraid of. And so yeah, he came back, and I thought that was pretty cool because he was probably my favorite member of the McMahon family. Um, Especially because they almost always have played Stephanie as a heel, always, and so it makes it hard to see her character as anything except that. Which I don't know. I don't know how she is in real life. No idea whatsoever. But so in the process, you have the dichotomy end up building up after a little bit of chit chat and a fight with the Undertaker that goes horribly wrong, and he still loses. And so there's no real reason that he should have run based on the storyline, but I was happy that he ran it because of the fact that I liked Shane. He ended up running the what is going on here? Oh, that's down to 5. Drop the chemistry sets, drop the whistle, drop the thermometer, drop the hacksaws, drop the funnel. Over here, drop the sundew. So, if by keeping the mini nuke in there I have permanently irradiated that area, I can totally move to another house. I just picked that one because it had a nice fireplace, but there are a couple others in town that have a fireplace, so I can move there if I have to. This one is not the one with the chicken walker, if I remember correctly. I've died in this town mostly from turrets. And it wasn't even in this town, it was actually in this town, which is the one that you start closer to, because the safe house is up there. Once I finish moving all this stuff, though, I'm going to have my guy sleep. And then I will probably probably call it a night. Because I went way too far. Why am I forgetting? Oh yeah, so much. Alright, I want this and this to stay here. I'll leave the clean water here. No pretzels. I'll take this, even though it's not useful for much. I will leave the ammonia for now. Let's see here. But yeah, so then he came to the company. Well, it turned out that that was a kind of interesting appeal to me, as I was like, cool, Sheen's back. So I ended up backing SmackDown. It also helped that I just didn't think that much of the Raw brand inherently. Whatever, such is the way it is. Raw, for a long time, really struggled. It had really bad writing, and so I was like, hey, I'm on the winning team, kind of, which is probably exactly what they were wanting, was you to pick a team and feel like your team was winning. But what they did not consider is that SmackDown's writing team would be so much better than Raw's writing team. And what ended up happening kind of as a result was you had a transfer, if I remember correctly, of the writers from one show to the other show. And it resulted in the Raw writers on SmackDown, I think, and the SmackDown writers on Raw. Like, they switched. And then for a little while, Raw had better writing, but SmackDown still had a lot of the better talent, or the better marketed talent, anyway. Alright, so inventory. I have 8 out of 25. And I got the mini freezers so I can get back food. Suitcase, if I can find it. Which I may not be able to find it. That might be gone. Whatever. I'm not gonna waste forever on that. But yeah, so when they did the transfer where they sent the writers to Raw that were on SmackDown, it really hurt SmackDown quite a bit, and I think since then it hasn't really recovered. I still generally consider SmackDown the better of the two shows, but they're doing everything they can to make you want to watch Raw more, which I feel like hurting your more popular brand because it's not the one you're marketing as the main brand seems like a pretty poor decision. And so I don't know what I think about it. Well, I mean, I do know what I think about it. I'm very disappointed in it. But they had Becky on SmackDown for the longest time, for example, and she's amazing, and no one doubts that. And they didn't do anything with her. And then you had Charlotte on SmackDown do things that made her popular as a heel, like demonstrate that she was capable as a heel. And then they moved her to Raw. And like that, once again, everything went pear-shaped. Is that the last big thing? No, I don't mean one yet. Two more trips, and then I'm done for the night. What else is there? Hot and cold. The WWE still has potential. That is a thing that I definitely think. I kind of already said that earlier. But, as I was also saying, I think it just needs to figure out how to balance listening to the fans with going the way that you think makes best sense. Because, again, you don't want to annoy your fans so much that they stop caring about the product you're trying to sell. That's not a really good way to continue to succeed in the business that you're in. But at the same time, writers become successful because they were good at writing. And so if you go about using non-writers as your sole source of your storylines, then you very well could end up ruining your product. And so I can understand why you would want to consider ignoring the fans to some extent. I don't think it's inherently wrong to do what they've done in that way. Red light. Didn't like those. But yeah, so the biggest thing is they need to. I mean, I guess part of it is they also need to just respect their talent. The talent that they have is remarkable. What's my condition now? 4. It has gone down. But yeah, I really think that the biggest thing that annoys the fans right now is that the WWE has all this talent, and it's like they don't know what to do with them. Um, they don't always need to win to look strong, but they definitely don't want to do what they've done to people like Bray Wyatt to people. Because Bray Wyatt, before he did his stupid thing where he cheated on his spouse and the off-screen drama that's come with it, before all that, he was a remarkable performer. He did a really convincing job of being this like crazy ass cult leader, and really driving home that he was this character, and he performed it well, he delivered it well, he voiced it well, he was an amazing performer in the ring, he had charisma in spades, he had, is this all stuff I'm leaving here? Yes, it is. Those are staying here too. That's Foond. That's Foond. I don't think I have that one. But yeah, so he did a very impressive job at being this performer. But the biggest thing is, if you're a heel especially, and especially if you're supposed to be emulating some form of threat, like you're supposed to be a big, scary, spooky guy, in this case, the leader of a backwoods cult full of weird, creepy men with big beards, you need to seem intimidating. And in the context of being a, like, promo guy, he did a great job. He did an amazing job, and he won over the fans enough that, I mean, if you look at the audience in any of his shows, he really demonstrates that by people holding up their cell phones when the lights go out and all that kind of stuff. But, the fans really liked the gimmick. The fans, at least at first, they thought it was really impressive and well performed and deserved kudos, and that Wyndham Rotunda was doing a great job and all that. And then he lost. He lost. He lost. He lost until he had a 30% win streak, which, not very high. Not very good. No. No. You don't do that. No, you don't succeed as a performer by losing all the time. And so people started to consider him a joke because he was never winning anything. And now we're at this point with the character where most people are saying the best thing to do is just get rid of what is really a very well performed, impressive, great character who I really think does deserve another chance. I think that the fans would still endorse Bray coming back as Bray, if you built him up for long enough. And if you actually gave him the um, what is that? Okay, it lasts forever. Good. Alright, so this should be... yeah, that should be it. So I am going to get ready to go to bed. I need to. I work tomorrow. As much as I'd love to just chill and live, I am the protector of the emeralds and gems. And so, I mean, I'm in narrow hallways running like it's a ball game, and that's something I'm just gonna have to do. But yeah, so I am not one of those people who thinks that any of it's a lost cause at all. I think that there's still plenty that could be done to save all of it, honestly. I don't think any of it's so far gone that it will never be able to be fixed. I think that the performers are good enough, and I think that the company has a good enough history. I mean, it became successful for a reason. These are gonna spoil. I don't need them. As such, though, I do think that they just need to consider a lot of things. Because, like, even on WWE right now, you have these redundancies. And so what I did forget to, because I've been so scatterbrained while doing this, I swear. The fact, though, that I've even been able to talk the whole time is a huge step up, in my opinion, from what it's been. The WWE booked both Kofi Kingston and Becky Lynch in essentially the same storyline leading up to WrestleMania. Both storylines are Vince McMahon is an old senile jerk and doesn't know how to book anything, and so he books stuff by deliberately making the fans angry. And then the fans get mad, and then he picks on the people who they care about enough that the people who they care about end up getting mad and retaliate, and something happens, and neither of them's going to WrestleMania, and now they gotta prove that they need to get to WrestleMania, and so they'll do something stupid about it in the long run. And they have, like, the ultimate example is, right now they've had Kofi on like 3 episodes in a row have to earn his way to WrestleMania. He's got to demonstrate that he's got the talent and the reason that he should go to WrestleMania or whatever. Some Vince McMahon ism. And which ones are these? Apparently my guy likes something. But they've done it over and over and over again, and it's not different ever. It's the same thing every single time. Hopefully, since WrestleMania is 2 weeks away now, they will let it be that this time Kofi's able to go. I saw the match. Hopefully this time Kofi's able to go. I am so sorry I did not see that you were there. But yes, I did watch the video. No, I can't do it in here. I'll have to remember later. Oh, that just doesn't go away. Neat. There we go. Eat potato chips. Alright, so that's probably about where I'm gonna call it a night, because I do have to go. But yeah, so with Kofi, hopefully they've gotten it to where that storyline's settled. I'm pretty sure they have the one with Becky settled. The biggest problem was that Asuka's been kind of a casualty of it, and that she's going to have lost the title, even though that she hadn't defended it at all, so that Charlotte can have one title and Ronda can have the other title, and it's going to be a women's title versus women's title match, and Becky will hopefully, it's the only thing that makes the best sense as a storyline, especially if they're headlining, which means it's the closing match of the night. Hopefully that means that Becky Lynch will be the winner, and she will hold both titles, be the undisputed women's title holder until they do something to split those titles up later. And that way she'll be able to go between SmackDown and Raw, and it'll justify why she's going on both shows, since they're still supposedly being split. I don't know. But if they do it that way, then hopefully that means at least the outcome is going to be positive in the end, except for the fact that unfortunately Asuka was this casualty who they've just kind of destroyed her character. That she went from being undefeated in NXT and it being a huge deal and being really respected and people loved her. She comes to the main roster. She has a lot of that good faith from the fans that were there, as well as people who were still interested. She's got a great intro song, by the way. Just saying. The fact that she goes from being this performer who never was invincible, she always would act like she was struggling in a fight, and she wouldn't just be a monster heel like a Brock Lesnar type, but she still would have this tenacity that would help her win, and then to just dump that streak immediately and have this dumb storyline and then end up going into where she has the title, doesn't defend it, and loses it. At least the hopeful outcome is that Becky will have a feel-good moment at the end. However, on the other side of things, it's still really sad for Asuka because I do like Asuka. I think she's a good performer. I think she has a great amount of charisma. She has a really creepy stare. She might work well with Nikki Cross. I don't know. I think that could be a good feud if she ended up transferring over to Raw. And while Nikki Cross could be part of Sanity, which is a thing that a lot of fans are pushing for, I understand why, because it is the thing that they had in NXT. If she's on the main roster and she has a chance to go, I think her feud with Ruby Riott will work well, and then after the Ruby Riott feud, it would be okay if she did one with Asuka, maybe. Maybe that's a thing to do, because I think both of them kind of have the creepy personality going on, and Nikki Cross is a talent that they've wasted so far on the main roster, which is not surprising because they've done that with a lot of them. Digression aside, I do think, though, that hopefully there's a positive outcome from it. It's not going to be Kofi, Seth, and Becky all winning. So somewhere there's going to be some disappointment. It's going to suck because all three of those are ones that I want to be there because I want Brock out of the picture. I'm done with Brock. I don't want to see Brock again unless they're going to change it and Brock's going to actually be on the show. Give him a contract closer to everyone else. If he's going to be a part-timer, he shouldn't be holding a title. Becky, I think it's just her time. They've showed that the fans are in support of her. She's done a great job with her character. I think she's got a lot of charisma, and she's definitely got a lot of performance ability in the ring. She's great. Okay, yes, I did watch enough of it. Not my kind of song. It's quirky, it's what it is. Mutilation, not really my thing. Even if it is a tongue-in-cheek, jokey song. But yeah, so... And then you have Kofi. And the thing is, they back themselves into a corner with Kofi because I have a feeling if Kofi doesn't win, there's gonna be some very mad people involved. I'm on about wrestling right now. I'm getting ready to leave, but I'm on about wrestling. I'm getting ready to... Because I have to work in the morning, so I have to clock out here pretty soon. Plus, I think I've talked myself so much that I got a sore throat. So, but, that said, I still do appreciate you being here, even if the song wasn't quite my style. That's not going to bother me. You're a very entertaining character, so I do hope you keep sticking around, because I have... Your chats have been fun and quirky, and I enjoy that. Goofy is good. Goofy is good here. But with that said, I do have to get going because I do have to work in the morning, and it is later than I expect. I was hoping to get done at 11:30, and it is now midnight. And so, I gotta get out of here because I do have to work, and I'm already gonna be short on the hours. So, thank you guys for watching. Have a good day, night, afternoon, morning, whatever's where you are. Hope to see you again real soon, and take care.